Good afternoon, everybody, and hello, Teri.
Hello, Mark. How are you today?
I am great. How are you?
I'm very great too.
Awesome. I'm especially excited today because today we have a special guest.
Yeah.
I put the wrong caption up completely.
Good start.
Great start. That's one of those moments I'm going to have to edit. Okay, here we go. Uh, Today we're going to be looking at how do you build your characters and
Mhm.
preparing for roles and that kind of thing. And we have a special guest actor today who is a multi-award winning Cynthia Crofoot. I'm just going to give her the proper intro so that everybody, the big build up here. She is a multi award winning produced screenplay writer and multi award winning actor. And as a writer, her screenplays and produced films have won several awards in New York, Los Angeles, and Toronto. As an actor, she's been working steadily in film, television, and theater for more than 25 years. Really? More than 25 years? She doesn't look that old.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Uh, and with lead and principal roles in over 60 productions, has garnered 8 Best Actress and 4 Acting Excellence Awards. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome. I'd like to welcome. I've invented a new word. I'd like to welcome Cynthia Crofoot.
Hey,
Hi.
Cynthia.
Hi. Boy, I sound really good on paper. Thank
So,
you.
welcome to Teri Talks Talent today, and we're going to be talking about how you build your characters and prepare for roles and so on and so forth, but also how you prepare your written characters too, because you do a lot of writing. So, Teri and I have a bunch of questions, and I'm hoping that some of our live viewers are going to tune in and send some of their questions too.
Okay.
So let's start off with I understand that you have known Teri a while. So how do you and Teri actually know each other?
Oh, good gracious. She's been my agent for the most part for, God, Teri, 20 years?
Not
15
that
years?
long. 14 at least.
14, is it?
Yeah.
I know, yeah, a long time. I connected with Teri almost immediately when I sat down with her. I was super nervous when I came to see her. I really wanted a good, strong representation and an agent, and I really liked her dynamics and her. We got along really well, and she's been one of my biggest supporters. God,
I'm
through
a fan.
times, right?
Yeah.
Then there were times when I didn't support myself, and she would just kick my butt. So it's a good working relationship for me, and I think we get along really well.
Yeah.
Actually, Teri and I, in a previous episode of Teri Talks Talent, we were discussing what to look for when you're searching for an agent, and I think that was one of the criteria was that they kick your butt when you need it.
Yes. Listen, it's you need an agent that's going to pull for you and fight for you, but who's also going to sit you down and have the serious talk when you need it. And she
Great.
does all of that, right?
Awesome. Well, there's credit indeed for you, Teri. So another question for you, Cynthia, is that I understand you have a bachelor's from the University of Toronto, specializing in psychology and majoring in crime and deviance. That's an
Yes,
interesting
yes,
one.
I did.
So how has that helped you in preparing for roles, if at all?
You know, I was the first kid to go to university, so it was kind of suggested that I take a real course, not acting. And the closest thing that I could find that still was people watching was psychology, and well, crime and deviance is a different kind of people watching, but psychology is so applicable to getting into character, evaluating character, being present with the person that you're on stage or on set with, and reading them. Like psychology and paying attention, it's a skill that every actor has. And just taking the formalized course gave me that much more of an edge, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And so it's really helped you in reading not just what they're hearing, what is coming out of their mouths, but also reading the meaning behind the words that are coming out, right?
Called the subtext. Yeah.
Subtext, exactly.
So and it's a thing. I think that every actor starts to develop it as a second sense, so that, I mean, you will walk into a room and, or maybe it's just me and I'm a freak, I don't know. I'll walk into a room and I'll, hear someone say something, and you'll hear just the slightest twinge in how they said it, and you'll think that's not right. There's something else under that. And then you want to find out more. And if you can carry that onto a film set when you're working opposite another actor and really hear what they're, not what they're saying with their words, but what they're meaning, that brings a whole different level to your character and your character's interaction with that other person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And boosts the whole performance entirely. Another thing,
definitely.
Yeah, some actors like, for example, Hilary Swank, Charlize Theron, Daniel Day-Lewis, Christian Bale, they will go all in to research characters for a role. Like, they'll take up a particular job, or they'll go shadowing someone who does that job. How far have you gone in the past to research a role?
I'm not that much of a method actor. I learned a long time ago from several very good acting coaches that, I mean, you don't have to be a serial murderer to understand that impetus. I mean, we've all had that moment where we wanted to kill someone, right? So just because we didn't act on it doesn't mean we haven't had that feeling. So for me, there's some actors, I was thinking about this, some actors, learning their lines and hitting their mark is as far as they go. And you can tell those actors on screen. And I really like watching some movies because you'll see an actor and you'll go, they're okay, they're doing their thing. And then there'll be like one scene where they're amazing. And I always think that was their audition scene. And they put that extra effort into learning their role for the audition. And that little bit of extra effort materializes on screen. So I don't think that you need to be a method actor. I think that you need to be a professional actor and put the work up front that is required into becoming a fully embodied character, because a character isn't, like we were just talking about subtext, a character isn't the words that they're saying, it's the internal life that they're bringing with them. Right? The external life of a character is easy to read off of a script. Where are they at? What are they doing? Who are they talking to? But it's all that other stuff underneath that you work on right away. You don't say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. You say, okay, I got this thing and why are they saying that? Well, what secret does this character have? What is their relationship with the person they're talking to? Like, do they secretly hate this person? And then that influences how you say everything. So I don't method act. Like, I don't feel that I need to go kill someone to be able to portray a serial killer on screen. But I think that you really need to be able to sit down and figure out what the internal life of that person is. And then that comes to life, because the camera is amazing, right? Like, you can have a thought and the camera will pick that up. Like, you can think, oh, I got to go to the bathroom. And the camera will pick up something and the director will be like, that was amazing. What was that moment? Oh. You don't need to tell them. You can just say,
I could actually hear loads of people from camera departments everywhere thinking, oh, yeah, you see, there's proof that we are the best.
Yeah.
That it all comes down to us. It's nothing to do with the director or the actors, but yeah.
Wow. It's a team event, right?
So when you have an audition or a self-tape to do, and you only have a very small section of information about the character or the role, how do you actually get to that from this like tiny little bit of information that you get on the script?
And that's a great question. There's so much more in a scene that you get for an audition than a lot of actors realize. And I only really fully realized it as I started to write my own projects. So, I mean, when you get, and I will say this in big, bold capital letters, when you get the script or your scene for your audition, read the whole thing. Like, don't just look for your part. Don't just read your part, because there's information that could be included outside of your little scene that will inform the tone of the movie or the tone of your scene, right? And sometimes the breakdown that, Teri, you get is maybe not as fulsome as the information that's included in the scene that you've gotten for your audition. And then the other thing to look at is what page is your scene from in the total script, right? So if you don't have the luxury of reading the entire script, look to see what page your scene is from, because if it's from the beginning of the film, then you know that it's starting the hero's journey and it's his world before. If it's towards the end, then you know that you're contributing to the closure of the story or the climax or the wrap up, right? Somewhere in that area.
Interesting.
So, and that will inform how, and then you have to say, okay, so this is my scene. Every well-written scene will be advancing the arc and the story. So then you say, okay, so if I'm at the end of the scene, how does my scene at the end of the movie advance the hero's journey, or how is it advancing the story? Now, there's sometimes, like that audition that I got last week from you, where you don't have I didn't have the page number. I had no lines. I can guess what my role was to advance the story because it was with one of the leads. And then you have to start to build your character and really read what's around it. So that scene, there was a lot more included in the scene than it first appeared. So you have to be an investigator and really look. And then once you've figured out where your scene is within the script, start asking character questions, like to bring it to life. I asked a couple of director friends of mine, knowing that I was coming on here today, what their most important things were in an audition, what people brought. Both of them, their first thing was to make a strong choice, not the right choice. Right? Stop thinking that it's the right choice. Just make a strong choice and commit to it and bring it, because they both also said there are numerous reasons why you won't get that role. But if you come in strong, professional, prepared, and ready to show them what you're bringing to the role, they will remember you.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. So, this is exactly it. And same thing with casting directors. Like, you may or may not get this role, but if you are memorable, they will constantly bring you back. They will bring you back and they will search for roles for you.
So the two things for that is I was always told, and I think you and I agree on this, is that if you continue to get called back into the room, then you're winning, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I just learned, it's one of my favorite little sayings now, is, win the room, not the role.
Yeah.
So that they will call you back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to do that through preparation. You can't, and like I go back to what I said at the beginning, you can't learn the lines and hit your mark and expect to bring an Oscar-worthy performance. You have to put in all that work up front to go and make it look effortless. Right?
Yeah. And it's not just the case of reading or just memorizing those words that are in the script. It's a case of really interpreting them and adding more to it, giving it more shape. And like you were saying, the camera picks up so much in your face as well. You give a lot away, just as much away in your facial expressions and also your body movement language too, as you're acting it.
Oh, definitely. And I had a thought there. I'm trying to remember what it was at the very beginning of what you said.
I mentioned movement. I don't know if that was it.
No. I don't know. It was before that. I can't remember. Maybe it'll come to me. But yeah, it's just important to go in and put the work in up front. So many actors get their audition and then say, okay, well, I have 2 days. And then they put it aside. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Something that I told to Teri. I love auditioning, right? There are actors who don't like it. And I always wonder why. It's an opportunity to perform in front of someone And that's what we all want, right? We all want to perform in front of someone.
Yeah.
And those casting directors want you to be good. Like I get the nerves, right? Because you're being evaluated. I mean, there's no way around it, right? But if you get your script 2 days before you have to audition, don't leave it to the very last minute, because then literally all you're doing is learning your lines and hitting your mark. And then for learning lines, one of the tricks that I learned a long time ago from an acting coach was learn your lines, learn your lines, learn your lines, then go do some exercise and say your lines. Because like what I do is I tape the other people's lines and leave a blank spot for mine. And then go do your elliptical or go do an aerobics class and listen to it and say it, because the nerves that your body feels when you're going to do an audition are the exact same emotions or the exact same body chemistry as when you're working out, right? So when you're nervous, your heart rate starts to pump, you get sweaty, you get a little out of breath. And when you're about to go into an audition room, your heart rate starts to pump, you get a little sweaty, you get out of breath. So once you know your lines as like a sweaty workout girl, your body says, oh, I know this, we know that.
So then you're in that mode. So I guess it's a little bit like, when you have a dream and then you wake up and all you remember is that I had a dream, but I can't remember what the dream was. And then when you're just like beginning to slip back into sleep, like, later on that night, it's like, now I remember what the dream was, because you're in that sort of level of consciousness. So I guess it's the brain working the same way. You've got everything's pumping and it's like, and it brings it back. Interesting.
It does. And then the last thing you need to do when you walk into the room is just throw it all away. And I know that so many acting coaches say that, but if you're holding on to, I mean, there's two important things for an audition, whether you're doing it at home or you're doing it in person. One is, after you've done all that preparation, trust that you've worked. And if you have literally actually worked up to your audition and learned the lines and learned the subtext, if you throw it all away and exhale, you will do your body knows it, right? It's the tension and the nerves that are stopping your body from remembering it. And then the other thing is if whichever scene you're doing, whenever you're doing it, if it's for a class or if it's for an audition in person or a self-tape, we're nice Canadians, right? And we want to, especially in an audition room, everybody wants to go, oh, hi, how are you? Yeah, I'm fine. Oh, how's the kids? But if you have to go into that audition room and be a serial killer, or you have to be in a state that you are so emotionally charged, it's okay to tell people, hey, nice to see you, talk to you after. And you're not being a bitch when you say that. You're being a professional actor who's serious and committed to their craft. And if someone doesn't understand that, then that's on them.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. Because that's the thing that a lot of people will kind of forget about until they get back to it again when they're in that waiting room, because you're just focused on the character, you focused on your lines and everything. You get all that done, and then you turn up and you're in that waiting room, and it's like that can just throw you.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure, because it's filled with tension. Just do it as a fun experiment. Walk into an audition room. You literally walk into a wall of tension.
It's true.
A lot of that's been taken away though now with the self-tapes and everything. That's taken that element away.
You know what my concern is now? It's funny because I just had this conversation with a friend of mine, and it was about an acting class, but I said it's probably similar now to auditions. I don't do this because I think you're doing yourself and the potential set that you're going to be on a disservice. Take the time to learn the lines, learn them, capital Learn, learn your lines. But nowadays with self-tapes, right now, if I was auditioning for you, I could have my screen full of my script, right? Yeah. And then I'm not doing myself any justice, because what happens when you go on set, then you really do have to learn the lines, and then you have to start over. And you're not doing the casting agent any service, because they're not getting a true representation of what. I understand that it gives a sense of confidence, but I'm just afraid that so many actors now aren't putting the effort in up front, which is so important. And they're just saying, well, I can have the lines. I'll just tape them here. I mean, I've taped a name to my screen. There was one audition. I couldn't remember the name of the town for whatever reason. I just couldn't do it. So I just taped it to my screen. So, and that's as cheaty as I get, I guess.
Yeah, but it's got to alter how you are in character if you have your lines available. I really notice a difference for my actors that are off book and those that still required, you know, like having the script. And the change is dramatic in terms of their character representation. It's just not the same. It's because you're focused more on that piece of paper that's beside you rather than being the character that you're trying to portray.
Well, that goes back to what I said about having an internal life. If you're just thinking about the words, you know, you're doing the character a disservice. And then I have to ask, isn't the whole point of acting becoming another character? So why are so many people like, why are they afraid to let go of, you know, to put in that word? I don't understand it. I don't.
Yeah, I think I have a theory about that, but I really feel that those that are really embracing acting as becoming different characters and going with like that, which is risky, are really truly the ones that do well. And those that hold on to the words and you know, it's like they can't get outside of that box, and they tend to be hobby actors, if you know what I mean. They just want to try and call themselves actors, and they're not really truly who they think they are.
Well, it's like what I was saying with the words are merely just kind of the shapes that are formed from the thoughts that are going through the character's brain, right? I mean, it's the same like with people that just every person that speaks, right? When you're communicating with another person, you're merely using words to get ideas that are in your head across to another person's brain to reformulate those and interpret those in a certain way. With acting, it's a little bit different because you've got the entire arc. Like it's like, you know, a life story told within, you know, 90 minutes or whatever you're given. And so within that is built that entire arc, and it's up to the character, or rather the actor through that character, to formulate those feelings and emotions and everything. And the words are really just in a way a byproduct of that, because, you know, when you're, and as a writer, Cynthia, you know this too, that of course when you're writing a screenplay or a short or whatever it is, the words really are just building into your character a way to get the ideas, you know, one idea across to the other, and then to form that arc, right? So rather than just saying the words that are there, it's not what I'm trying to say is it's not an informational, you know, it's not like commercial presentation of something. Yeah. It's a byproduct.
It is. It's you know, because a movie is a visual art, right? It is not a book. So it's about showing through facial expressions or thoughts or, you know, slight mannerisms what the character's actually going through when they're saying their lines. Mm-hmm. It's more than just what's written on the page. And a good story, a good script won't be so expositional, right? So it won't say, I'm having a really great time today. I feel really happy. Instead, you know, she'll be planting a flower and smiling and saying, this is great, right? Yeah. And you still get the same feeling through it. But it's finding those moments and really, and it gets easier the more you do it. It's why you take classes, which is another reason why I don't understand why people aren't learning their lines. You're paying for a class to learn how to become a stronger, more accomplished actor. So, you know, take advantage of it. Put the work in up front. If you want to be an actor, that's another opportunity to act. Yeah, exactly. Where you are in a safe space where someone's going to give you really great feedback. Because as you know, Teri, I mean, you go to auditions and you don't get it and you think, why? Why? What was wrong? Like, what did I do wrong? Like, yeah. But they could be any of a number of things, right? So long as you go to someone and you know that your craft is strong, then you can say, I did a really strong audition. They probably just wanted something different.
Right.
And that doesn't mean you're bad. That goes back to winning the
Yeah.
room, not the role.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So.
Yeah, and also, I mean, in terms of doing that practice, of course, I know a lot of people put money into, uh, paying for those classes and so on. But there, in between those, there are so many other things that you can do. There are free resources out there. So, for example, on Clubhouse, notice that there's quite a few clubs, a lot of rooms that come up where it's like, come in and do a cold read. And you,
Mhm.
like, I did one last night where I went in. It was so fascinating. So you get to
Awesome.
hear other people do those cold reads, and then they'll get feedback from the person who's hosting it. Usually it's an actor, and you get some great feedback. So you go through the script once, and then you'll get some feedback on it, and they get you to sort of tap into thoughts and so on, and how, if they hear that you're acting it, then it's like, okay, let's do it with this feeling. And it's fantastic. And that's free. So, there's a lot of stuff out there that you can do just to kind of tap into it just for a few minutes before you then go on back to your self tape or go on to your
Well,
audition.
I mean, every actor knows actors, right? And
Yeah.
we all want to be acting. I have two good friends, and they were like, well, if you ever just want to do a scene, let's just do a scene like via, you know, electronically, not in person during COVID, and or do a monologue. There's that monologue slam, right? Like you could,
Mhm.
or just work on a monologue yourself, send it to your agent, say, hey, this is what I'm doing, what do you think? Or
Yeah.
there
Exactly.
are many ways for you to keep your instrument fresh. And a lot of actors are lazy, right? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I think we as human beings are lazy, right? Like, what's the easiest way to get from point A to point B? That's where the psychology comes into play, right? But if you want to be, Gary Oldman or whoever your actor mentor is, you need to put the effort in, because sure as crap, they aren't waiting till the day before to learn their lines so they can learn their lines and hit their mark. They're saying, what is the backstory of this person? What are the questions about this person? What is the secret that they're carrying? What am I actually saying during this line? And then the other thing is, since we all have actor friends, before you do your self tape and before you do your scene, call them up and say it with them. I taped mine, but then you have to call someone up and hear it with a live person. It takes 15 minutes. Run through the scene 3 times and say, okay, I'm cool now. I've heard it with another person. It's just invaluable, because then you also see if you're actually listening to what that other character's saying, or
Mhm.
if you're just listening to the words, right? Because
Yeah.
both those two things
Waiting for
will
the trigger, the last trigger word until you can
right.
speak. Yeah.
What's my cue word? What's my cue word?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
She said cow. I have to.
I wanted to touch on something there. You talked about, going into the background, looking at the whole backstory and everything. And your backstory says that you have English, Scottish, Irish, and Slovak ancestry. And I just wondered if any of this was something that drives you or not drives, but gives you sort of some more kind of breadth when it comes to thinking about the voice or the accent or dialect of a character anytime.
Voice is actually really, really important. And I worked a little bit, and I think it's something that people need to continue to work on, not just from a dialect perspective, but from I think there was something I read maybe on your webpage or something, but the first thing that you hear from someone is going to inform their opinion of you, right?
Mhm.
Not just necessarily what they're saying, but how they're saying it and their tonal inflections and all of that.
Mhm.
So I think that voice is super important. I don't know that my background actually fed into my dialects. Quite honestly, I was in community theater for a long time, and the mainstay of community theater are English comedies.
Yeah.
So I learned, for better or for worse, an an English dialect. And Southern, my family's American, so I can go into Southern, a general Southern, not specific. I know you teach specific dialects, which I think is very important, because if someone asks you to come in and do like a Texas Southern, I don't know that I'd be confident going in and doing that unless I had worked with someone to help me make sure that I'm not bastardizing their dialect, right? That's the other thing. When a script or a casting director asks for something very specific like that, make sure you're bringing it.
Yeah.
Right. Don't be half-assing that, because you won't ever get back into that room.
And that's happened. That has actually happened with one of my guys who had Scottish accent on his resume, was, basically brought in specifically to do that, could not do it in, at all. And the casting director and the director who was present absolutely ran up one side of him and down the other, saying, you cannot put that on your resume if you don't have it in spades. And he did not. And so they never brought him back again.
No.
So it's really important to get it right.
Well, and then if you have the time, if you have a general knowledge of it, work with a professional, right? Like that's why you have professionals who are dialect coaches.
Hello,
right? Mark is the one you would go to. You would say, Mark, because I have Irish background. If you ever heard me try to do an Irish accent, just doesn't happen, right?
So, Cynthia, I should mention that every month we have something called Motormouth, a monthly Motormouth meetup, which happens on the first Monday of every month. And it just so happens that the one at the beginning of August will be Irish. And
really?
So you should come along to that. And it's completely free. Right? And free good, right?
I would love to do that, because I auditioned for a play, and I auditioned for the English lead, and I did it in spades. And then he's like, well, I'd like to hear you read for the Irish Maid. And I was like, sure, what the hell? I'll give it a go. It was like the entire audition room laughed. And I was like, yeah, bring it. Because I can easily flip into some things, but I would love to learn. I love learning different dialects. It increases your marketability as an actor as well, right?
Yeah.
So the first Monday of the month is Irish, is it? Okay, well, let's have a giggle with that.
It will be this time. Actually, I think this is probably the third time that we've had Irish come back by popular demand. It's really much in demand. People want to let's do Irish again. It's like,
really?
Okay. So, and these days I usually bring in a special guest as well. So I might be getting one of my friends to come along to read for us. And then I'll be pointing out the bits and pieces that make it, sound Irish. What are the features of the Dublin accent or what have you. So anyway, if anybody wants to know more about that, just go to talklikeThat.com/MMMM. All lowercase m's those are.
Go to
Yes, exactly.
So Mark, I noticed that there was a question, how long in advance did you work with a coach to learn a dialect before an audition?
Oh, all right.
That's a really good question. So maybe you can talk about that a little bit too.
So how long in advance? Well, really, this one is like the question, how long is the piece of string and what color is it? Because it's...
you can't just learn it just before an audition. You have to be studying dialects.
See, having said that, though, to be fair, a lot of dialect coaches do get called the night before the morning of an audition, right?
Really?
So it's... this happens a lot. And sometimes what happens is I know some dialect coaches who get called in on the evening of the actual shoot because a director has made a call to say that, okay, actually, you know what, this character is actually from Ireland. He's not from England anymore. But go with it. And then it's like, oh, shit. So then they have to call a dialect coach to actually come in and work with. I mean, I've heard stories of people calling from their trailers and the dialect coach going in to a shivering wreck of an actor who has 1 hour before they are
Wow.
in front of the camera to speak in that accent. And you have to do your best, but there's only so much you can do. So really, my best answer to that question is as long as possible. Ideally, you do it proactively, and you will work out which accents are likely to be the ones of the characters that you're likely to be booked for. Like, what do you look like? What sort of character where could you be from? Look in the mirror. Where could you be from? And what do people from that place sound like? And then start going and doing your own research, listening to people from that place. There's lots of stuff online. There are loads of
Yeah.
resources online, and then book up with a good dialect coach that has been recommended to you by someone you trust, and then book some hours with them to work proactively on that accent. Now, of course, if you got an audition in a couple of days' time, then you want to call somebody and find out, do they have time to work with you for a couple of hours to point out the very basics. Hopefully you already have your basis that you've worked on before, you've done your research, and then it's a case of refining that, fine tuning it with a dialect coach. So that's the best answer I can give, really.
But then you have to be prepared, I would think, to work with that dialect coach. If you book it for the entire, whatever you're being called to ask for as an actor, you can't say, "Oh, I booked the audition. I've got that one scene down. I can fake the rest." Like, you have to be prepared to commit, right? You're all in.
So it always has to be full commitment. Really, you got to commit to it. You can't. I know some people do. What I will sometimes get is somebody's got an audition coming up and they don't have much time or money, and I just tell, okay, the best I can do is you send me the sides and I will read it in the accent, right? I'll read it in the accent, and then you do your best to mimic it. It's not ideal, but it's I guess it's kind of like a band-aid solution to a short-term thing. But
then you end up like I can't even remember the name of it. Do you remember Harrison Ford, and he had to do like an Irish accent for that movie? And I love Harrison Ford. He did the worst Irish accent that I've ever heard. And every time he spoke, literally, I got popped out of the movie. And I thought, why didn't they just tell him to not do it? Like, to just use his... It would have been, find one line in the script to say, "Oh, he's immigrated from England," whatever. Like, I don't know. It was...
Exactly. No, that is so true. And there are so many examples that I won't go into, but the one that springs to mind for me was Michael Downey Jr. He did. I've not seen this movie. I've read about it, but it's like he did Dolittle, and
Dr. Dolittle.
Yeah, he did Dr. Dolittle, and just basically on a whim, he decided to do Dolittle in Welsh. And basically the whim was that he'd read about some doctor from, like, a weird, wacky doctor from like 100 years ago or something. And he thought, okay, to honor him, I'm going to do this whole thing in Welsh. And it's like, Robert. I said Michael. It's not Michael. It's his brother, Robert. So Robert Downey Jr. And it's like, why did you do this to yourself? Because obviously he is the one who is not Welsh in this. Like, it was a real stretch. And the Welsh accent for basically anyone who's not Welsh is a tricky one.
It really is.
If you're not careful, you're going to end up sounding like you're from the Indian subcontinent. So you're either Pakistani or you're from Mumbai. You've got to be very careful. It's an easy one to slip out. So, you're absolutely right. It's like, if it's a specific thing that is required, or if it's an accent that you have, like I said, if it's a proactive thing, not reactive, and you've been working on it to the point where you feel so comfortable with it, like you now own the accent, and you can now put that on your resume and say, okay, I can do things in this accent. At that point, then it gives you the license to then go and do an audition. Okay, hang on a minute, because I know, this accent. Can I do it in this one now? And then it's like, yeah, sure, give it to us, because I know actors that have those accents in their pocket, and they booked roles because they've done it. It's like, oh, okay, let me try it in this, and they've done it in that accent, and then it's like, okay, I love it, let's go for it. I know at least 2 actors that have
Nice.
actually done this. So
Yeah.
but yeah, make sure you got it. Make sure you got it down. By the way, I think this is probably a great moment for me to plug something, completely shamelessly. And that is that I'm going to be co-teaching something called Accent Actors Academy. Get it right. Also called A Cubed, and that's going to be starting in August. And it's a 6-week program on embedding accents into characters. So it's going to be me and the actor Kat Shaw. For more information, go to talklikeThat.com/A3.
Nice.
So anyway, that's
Awesome.
as much as I'll say about that for now.
Well, send us a link too, and we'll share it big time.
Oh, awesome! I will do. I will do. So yeah, okay. Next question is coming from Teri. But very briefly, I just want to say that somebody mentioned that Robin Hood. No, yes, Kevin Costner's Robin Hood was also a terrible example of an accent gone wrong. Yeah, awful. But anyway, let's not dwell on the negatives. Teri.
Yes. So here I am. Yeah, I was thinking about like how actors memorize long pieces of dialogue, and are there any specific tricks or tips that you have, because you've done lots of really big scenes of your own, and what kind of techniques do you use to actually memorize that kind of material and create the character at the same time? So I'm always astounded that you guys can actually come up with like so much dialogue memorized, and I don't know how you do it. So would love to hear that.
Well, practice. So there's 2 things. The character development for me starts first just by, like I said, examining the script. And then for learning the lines, there's no way around it but to do it, is to sit down and just keep saying them. I know people who write them out. I don't do that. But if you keep saying them, it's harder to do a big block of dialogue, like a monologue, because there's no cues to kind of spur you to your next comment. When you're in a discussion with someone, as it is naturally in life, if you're actually listening to that person, what they say, not listening for your cue word, but listening to what they're saying, what they say will naturally, most times, spur the next comment from you, because people talk in a back and forth kind of way. The hardest dialogue to memorize is if you have a change. So if you and your scene partner have been talking about peanuts for 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden you're the person who's going to bring up the fact that there's a storm coming and we better get prepared, you need to find a way to trigger that in your brain. And there's ways to do it without thinking about the last word that person is going to say. But really to do it is to sit down. I sit down first and I'll go through it. I'll highlight it, and then I'll try and memorize it and go, da, 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 da. And then I do it. I take my phone, like I said, and I tape everybody else's dialogue, and I leave spaces for me, so that I have to struggle to find the words, right? And then you just keep doing it. Plug in your headset, and like I said, go for a walk. Keep saying it, because, and ideally, if you get the audition, which you will, or the scene that you're going to be filming on set, a day before even, divide it into 2 days, because you may work on it for an hour one day and think, yeah, I got that, all right. And then you get in front of the camera and you're nervous and your brain shuts off and you're like, oh, Like, what happened there? I knew that. So I find if you do it over 2 days, it gets into your brain better. And like I said, now that we're at home, do it in front of your own camera and then watch it back and see, you know, did you get all the words? Did you do it right? Words are important, right? Somebody wrote those words, and the writer will be very annoyed if you start free speaking. You know, I mean, small changes are fine. Like if your brain honestly clicks. But as a writer, you know, I mean, you write things, especially if you're auditioning for like well-established series, do your darndest to learn the words as they have been written, because naturally when nerves hit, things are going to change a little bit. So do your best to learn it the way. But really, Teri, it's by rote. You just sit down, and the only way through it is to do it.
Cynthia, do you use an app to help you learn lines?
No, I use dictaphone. So what I do literally is I'll sit down and I'll turn on the dictaphone, and I'll, if someone else has the first, or if I have the first line, I'll go, scene 1, start. And then I'll have a quiet space for me to talk. And then I'll read the next person's line, and then I'll leave a quiet space. And then so that I know that when the quiet space comes, I'm supposed to be saying something. And if my brain doesn't know what it is, then I have to work on it a little bit harder.
Okay. I have used before now. I have used an app in the past. I cannot for the life of me.
There are apps.
But
yeah. I don't use them, but there are apps. And then, but then, you know, Teri, the other thing is then to just make sure that you sit down with a friend of yours and say, look, you got 15 minutes. I just want to go through it. And don't put it on your screen, you know?
Yeah. Just try to run through.
It.
Yeah.
And find mnemonics. Yeah.
What about recording the whole thing and then plugging in the earphones just as you're going to sleep at night and having it like loop just while you're going into dreamland? I heard that there's something that goes on with the brain at that time. Is it ever tried it?
You know what, I'm gonna, you know, touch wood, thank the gods that be. I have a very easy time learning dialogue, and I don't know if it's my theater background, because, you know, the thing about theater is, and it's actually a really good solid foundation for auditioning as well, because when you get on stage, there's no retakes, right? Like, so either you struggle through it,
exactly,
or you don't.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you're in an audition and you lose your mind,
your retake is the next evening.
Right?
Just when you hope
I would love it
the same way the next day. Yeah.
If any of my actors or all of my actors could actually do community theater at least once or twice in their career, it would be awesome, because
I tell you,
that would change everything.
Well, but the other good thing about community theater, and I really think, I mean, once you have a solid acting foundation, because community theater can teach you some very bad habits, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I struggled, I mean, Teri, before I met you, I struggled for years with coaches to get rid of those habits, because the mentality for theater, community theater, is that most people don't put a lot of the work. It's a lot of memorize the lines and hit your mark. And so to become connected to the words and to have that element of truth, which will elevate your theater performance as well, was something that I needed to go back, and I needed to really be stripped down and build it back up. But once you have that foundation, the thing that community theater offers you is A, you really learn your lines. B, you learn how to practice and, you know, get the lines into your head, because you have a block of dialogue that you need to know. And then it also teaches you how to react in the moment and really listen, because, you know, I've been on stage with actors and they don't know their line. And if you're not listening and paying attention to what's going on stage, then there's this silence. And even if it's 2 seconds, the audience goes, what's going on?
Yeah.
So you really have to be present and aware, so that if someone misses their line, you're like, oh no, but it was over there. And then you pick up and you keep going. So it's the same in an audition. You kind of remove that fear of dropping a line or missing a word, because you know that you're going to be able to just keep going through it. And if it really stinks, you know, just say, I'm going to do that over. like, don't do anything. Don't, oh my God, I did such a, oh, can I please just, I'm going to do it over.
Yeah.
Because that sucked.
Yeah.
Don't say it sucked to them, but inside you're thinking, you know?
Yeah, it's like you said, it's really interesting that you brought up those two things there with the community theater, because it's like, yeah, you can learn some really bad habits. Like you say, you know, oh, you have to be stage left for that. Then you have to be able to get to stage right in order to pick up the glass and then walk two steps, and then you drink, and then you say this line. So it can be like that. But then the other thing is that if you're doing that, 20 times, in a month, and then it's like you got to the point where it's like, okay, what else can I put into this? So it gives you that as well.
Well, yeah, but okay, so here's my problem with that. And I've worked with actors who, so the one other positive thing I'm going to say before it goes out of my brain is that with community theater, you're going to be given the opportunity to play roles and characters that you won't necessarily be given the opportunity at first to play on film, like leading roles, right? You will be given those opportunities. What you just said, yeah, so by the 20th performance, you're like finding all the inner character and you're finding this inner life, and oh, wouldn't it be cool if we did that? Listen, actors, that's what rehearsal's for. When you hit the stage for your first production, or when you hit the movie set for your film, you better have put all of that up front, so that when you, because I did the film or the stage play Nuts. And I remember the final show, there was this one guy, never knew his lines. Finally, he learned his lines for the last show. And at intermission, he came up to me and he said, "Hey, Sin, I'm gonna do something. Just trust me." And I thought, well, you didn't know your lines till today. I'm not trusting you with anything. But all of that preparation needs to go up front. And the good thing that you learn with theater, again, is that you have 3 rehearsals a week for months leading up to your stage performance. So you have that time to play. And if you take all of that and you put it into your preparation as an actor for your role or your audition, it just elevates it so much more, because you know the subtext and the story that needs to be told.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then when you get to the last but second rehearsal, and the main actor that you're playing with has a heart attack.
Listen, I had the lead. He was a recovering alcoholic, and he fell off the wagon the day before we opened, and we had to get a stand-in. And what do you do? He had to walk the stage with the book. I mean, you do what you got to. So that's
happened with us too. Yeah, the guy had.
But it's a good learning, right?
Oh God, yeah. It's a trial by fire. I mean, this dude, he's got his glasses on. He's reading from the book, and he's skipping lines like nobody's business, and skipping pages. And then you've got to be like, oh shit, yeah. And then you got to skip to your cue there. Yeah, that I'll never forget. So
theater, Teri, theater is really good for a number of things, like the ability to learn lines, the ability to feel confident if you miss a line. It really, really focuses your attention on listening to other characters. And it gives you a kind of a way to hone your craft without taking a class.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Tony says he's done some very cheesy comedic.
Thanks, Tony. I noticed Jim also said he uses Script Rehearser as an app for learning lines. Script Rehearser.
Also, to Jim, I'd like to say congratulations on the Italy versus England game. Yeah.
Don't go there. Getting political now.
And so just to quickly deviate away from that, on the app thing, I've also heard told, I think a couple of my actor friends have told me that there's an app out now that is a screen, it mimics a teleprompter, right? So the words move up. And I've heard told from a couple of casting directors that they don't mind if it's there, but they don't want to see you reading.
Yeah.
Like the whole point of auditioning is to have memorized it. Keep it there for you know, oh my God, I forget the name of the town. Oh, it's that. Okay. But not to read.
Yeah, I've heard that as well. It's a little bit different in the US where they're a little bit more lenient about having the script with you. But here in Canada, the casting directors really want you to be off book. It's way more professional, and it really allows them to see what you're capable of in a real way. So any of my actors that submit self-tapes to me where I can see they're reading their script, unless it calls for it in the script that you're reading something.
You can see the words like moving up in their, in the reflection of their iris.
I won't submit the tape actually because it just is really unprofessional, and it reflects on both the actor and the agency. So yeah.
I'm just going to make a note here. Learn lines.
You're always off book.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cynthia, for coming on and talking to us about all of this. This is really important, valuable knowledge that you're bringing to it. 25 years worth. So,
yeah.
Were you a child when you began?
I'm going to be 54 in August, and I'm proud of it. So.
Wow. Yeah.
So, go on, tell us, what is your secret? Is it lighting?
It's lighting. Get a loop lamp.
It's lighting. Okay, everybody go out and get those ring lights.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, if anybody wants to know any more about Cynthia and her beauty regime secret, you can go to her website, which is cynthiacrofoot.com. That's Crofoot without a W.
Without a W.
I'm sure you get that misspelled all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
I never ever say my name first. I always just spell it, because if I say it and then spell it, the W still shows up.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So there you go. Thank you so much for coming on. And is there anything that you've got in the works right now that we should look out for?
I have a short movie that I just did with Carrie Haim, which is in post-production. So that's coming out. I have my short 2-minute film, which will go up on my website as soon as it's through post-production. So I'm thinking maybe a couple weeks. And I have another short film called One Shot that is in pre-production that we're hoping to film in mid-August some point. So still all kinds of stuff. And then the auditions that my agent sends me all the time.
Awesome. Yeah. And I can say, like, you sent me a sneak peek of one of the shorts you did. It's called Obdurate. And Brian says, congrats on how amazing Obdurate has done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. So true.
It's an amazing, that's something obviously you wrote and acted in, and it is an amazing piece indeed.
Thanks. That'll be up on my website. I'm going to say in a couple of months. We have one more festival that we're waiting to hear from that also has a marketplace, which I'm hoping to shop it around, because I've been told, I know, Teri was like, it can't end there. So everybody wants it to be a movie or a series.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Some more writing in
something looks like it could open up for something like that.
So after that, it'll be posted.
All right.
Awesome. Look forward to it.
We're looking for it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. And
thank
you to everybody who came to watch live, and also to everybody that came to watch it afterwards.
Thanks.
And we'll see you again next week. Okay.
Bye, everyone. Same bat time, same bat place.
Yeah.
For those
Teri
of you
Talks Talent Tuesdays at 2:20. There you go. You can help remember that.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Cynthia.
Bye. Thank you.
Everyone.